Jason, and we are live. Billy is joining.
On our main. Welcome, folks! We have a live event. This is pretty rare for us, but I'm pretty excited because, well, DJI just released a 2-minute video on this drone, and that's it. And then they stopped the live event, which was kind of surprising. But we're here to talk about the drone because Haye from Drone Excel, you know Haye, and Billy from the Billy Cal Show on YouTube, you know Billy. They both have the drone as well as we do. We're sitting somewhere right here on our desk, and we've been testing this thing for a while. And we want to be here and answer your questions. So, Billy, Haye, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
So, first thoughts, guys. What is this? Is this a great drone? Is this something that people should leave at home, not even purchase? What are your thoughts? Haye, I'll let you get started.
I think it's a remarkable drone. I mean, thinking that it's less than 250 grams and considering what it's capable of, I think DJI moved the goalposts significantly with this one. I mean, I remember when the first DJI Mavic Mini came out. I mean, that was impressive considering how small it was, but it lacked in video and photo quality. And I think with this one, they made a massive step up, and to the point where this actually competes, I think, with some of their own drones. I mean, if you're looking to get into the drone hobby right now, I don't really know what other drone would be better to start with than the Mini 3 Pro at this point.
Billy,
Yeah,
what
I
are your
agree with
thoughts?
you. I mean, I looked back at that original Mavic Mini when that came out, and I was thoroughly impressed with it. I remember when it first came out, I wasn't looking forward to it at all, just because I thought it was going to be another Spark type drone that wasn't all that great,
Yeah.
didn't fly that great, didn't have great transmission, but it ended up being a great drone. So, they've kind of built off of that. I think that when they went from Mini 1 to Mini 2, they almost had it in their minds that they were going to limit the Mini 1 because a lot of those changes were made in the camera and software. Like, they just upgraded it to 4K, they just let it shoot raw photos, things like that. But this is a brand new redesign, and for the past month, I've been taking it and using it on commercial jobs, on real estate jobs, and the camera's been totally perfect for that type of work.
The camera is surprising. The camera is, we tested it, we have this new chart that we've been using here. We put it against some of the best drones that we have in the office, including the Air 2S, which quite frankly, it has great image quality, and it blows it out of the water at pretty much every ISO that we could find. Before we go into this, I want to talk about the pricing because the pricing is a little bit different than the original Mini. What are you guys' thought on the pricing?
Well, I'm actually having some uploading issues on my review, so it's not up yet. It's just processing now. But in terms of the pricing, I touched on that in the video, and I think that they actually are spot on with their pricing because this drone is basically a Mavic Air 2, at its heart, with a similar camera, similar specs in the flight time. It's a little bit smaller, so it doesn't have the same speed, but still a very similar drone to the Mavic Air 2 that retails for $800. So with just the drone itself being a little bit less expensive, I think that they kind of nailed it in terms of pricing. And then if you further look at what they're selling the DJI RC combo for, under $1,000, I don't understand how they got that for under $1,000 either. So I think that on both ends of the spectrum, they really hit it really well.
I would agree. I mean, if you look at the original Mavic Mini and the Mini 2, they were priced a little less expensive than this one. But I think if you look at the capabilities that this drone brings, and especially when you use the DJI RC, the new remote control with the built-in screen, there's no way to go back to using a smartphone once you're used to having a controller with a built-in screen. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, so I think for
Yeah,
$20 more, $10 more, you can get the smart controller and the drone in itself, the new smart controller, this thing right here. And you can do that for about $20 more than the Hotel Nano Plus. So DJI is going after the Nano series from Hotel. People complained when the Nano came out because it was expensive for being a mini drone. Is it because it under-delivered compared to this drone? Where do you guys think this fits in terms of offering, and are people going to be bulking at the price the same as people did with the Nano?
Nah, I mean, I think that because it's a drone from DJI, it might be a little bit different. I mean, we know to expect quality from them, whereas, you know, the Autel had a lot of issues right out of the gate. You know, obviously the Jello effect with the camera. I know, Greg, you love yours. You can't seem to get your gimbal working properly. So, you know, I see the same price. It's actually less expensive with the built-in screen, the DJI RC. It's less expensive than Autel's Nano without the built-in screen. So I see that as a huge win for DJI. I mean, if someone says, hey, I can get this great drone with a badass remote controller for less money, it's almost a no-brainer. So, you know, I was a little bit underimpressed with the photo quality of the Nano for it being 50 megapixels or whatever it is. So it still has certain edges on paper, but I think that, you know, in the real world, the Mini 3 is just going to crush it.
I would agree. I think with Autel, I think as far as I can remember, every Autel drone launch we've seen, there's always been issues, right? I mean, either they weren't able to ship them fast enough, or there were still things that needed to be fixed with firmware. Only with the Mavic 3 we've seen something really like that with DJI. Otherwise, you kind of know what you're in for. You know what you're going to get. They ship quickly, and these drones typically just work. And I was surprised with, or not surprised, I mean relieved, I guess is what I should say, with the Mini 3 Pro that it connects to satellites quickly, much faster than we've seen with the Mavic 3. So that was a good thing. Was I was a little worried about that.
I've seen a lot of discussions on that online. People asking if it actually does connect quicker. The reason I'm firing this up is because Dutch Oven Guy in the chat is asking about the brightness of the screens, and it's hard to compare really, maybe by you looking at it, but it is not as bright as the smart controller. Or the the RC Pro. I'm going to show you right here, but it might be difficult for you to see the difference. The RC Pro is brighter in bright conditions. Just trust us on that. We couldn't get any data from DJI on the actual nit, but it is less than it is on the RC Pro. So that answers that question.
It's 700 nits in the DJI RC. So I feel like it's still just bright enough to the point where it's good outside. Like it's not dim at all. So I mean, I think that 700 nits for that size is perfect. And you know, the brightness aside, I almost prefer to use that RC over my RC Pro. You know, just in general, because I think it's more lightweight, it fits the hand better, it's easier to fly with for longer periods of time. I really hope that they open that thing up to other drones, because it really is a home run. And you know, they aren't offering any pricing, or I don't think that they offer to buy just the remote separate for right now. So I think that their plan is to make it like a Mini 3 exclusive, and then hopefully they open it up in the future, because that's an awesome remote.
Yeah, I hope not. Somebody's asking half chrome if it can be used with
it's
other drones, but it can't. It can't be used with other drones. Sorry, Haye, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I hope they do open it up for other drones. It seems like the remote controller to go with. I mean, the other one that you have on your side without the display, the regular remote controller, I mean, it's nice, but once you're used to having a built-in display, it's the way to go. What I noticed with mine is when I first started it up, if you tap on the swipe from the top down, you get this menu. Mine was not set at maximum brightness. So when I was flying it yesterday in the middle of the day and it was really sunny, I maxed it out. And it might not be as bright as the smart controller, the DJI RC Pro, but it's definitely bright enough for daylight conditions. And not having those antennas and the lightweight make it my favorite controller for sure.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect combo between this and basically a smart controller. In terms of weight, this is the lightest possible solution you can fly, unless you don't put a phone on this. But as soon as you put a phone on this, it's going to be heavier than this thing here. Yeah. And some people say it's huge. It's actually not that much bigger than the RCN1 controller. So I say, if you're used to flying this, I know people think this was huge when it came out, but I mean, with all of it put together, if you were to put this on an old controller from DJI and put a phone on it, that would be bigger than this thing anyway. So I think this is the perfect compromise. I love the weight of it. I don't like that it doesn't have an HDMI out, but I can live with that. I think most people will be able to live with that. I'm trying to look at the questions in here.
Real quick, I think that with that RC, I think that with that bottom host port, I think you'll be able to use that for different functions in the future. I think that you'll actually be able to maybe plug in a USB-C to HDMI adapter. Just a thought.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like something like that will be possible, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to have two USB-C ports there, I think.
People are asking about pricing, and I have to say there's a ton of different pricing available for this thing. You can buy, and I don't remember from the top of my head, but it will definitely, actually Ethan is going to go run and get the pricing. You can buy the drone by itself, which is the first time I think that DJI is doing this, where if you already have an RCN1 controller, you can basically buy the drone without it, and that's, well, Ethan is going to get the pricing in a second here. And then you can buy the drone with the RCN1 right here, and you can buy the drone with the smart controller right here, and then you have the Fly More combos on top of it, and we'll get to that in a second because there's a bit of a surprise with the new batteries on the pricing. So somebody, I know Mark is saying $759 by itself and $909 with the controller. I think that makes sense in terms of pricing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so $759 is the pricing
correct.
with the RCN1. $909 is the pricing with the new RC with the built-in screen, and then on its own by itself is $670. So again, I think that the pricing is right on par. And I even addressed in my video, I mean, considering, price increases across the board with inflation and stuff, I mean, it's not like it's double the cost of what we were getting with the Mini 2. So
somebody's asking,
and then this time,
go ahead, Haye.
This time it's different as well. That some of the accessories come separately without the drone. So now it's a DJI Mini 3 Pro Fly More Plus kit, $249. The Fly More kit $189, and then the RCN1 remote controller for $49.
So let's talk about these batteries. Sorry. Two different batteries. A light battery that keeps the drone under 249, and then a bigger battery that will last longer but take the drone over, I think, by 30 grams. And if you don't care about 249 and you want to fly longer, then this is the battery right here. Actually, I think from our testing, the light battery did better in terms of flight, not better, in terms of the advertised flight time. We were closer to the advertised flight time with the light battery than we were with the bigger battery, but still the flight time was pretty darn good for both of them. Did you guys have any issues with flight time on yours?
No,
not really.
In fact, I did an active track flight using the bigger battery, and at one point in time, while the drone was following me, I had 90% battery left and was estimating that I could fly for another 51 minutes. So, I mean, with 10% taken down, it was saying I could fly over the advertised flight time. So that's the one thing that I've been loving about this drone is that flight time. I mean, I have a mixture between the standard and the plus batteries. So, it's really cool. He's beeping over there.
Sorry.
It's really cool that we have a small drone with that long of a flight time. And something that I like that DJI did is kind of gave people the option with the Mini 3 depending on what type of flyer they are. So it stays true to the name. It's under 250 grams. You can get a battery that gives you really good flight time with 34 minutes. But for those that don't care about that weight, just like you said, Greg, they give you the ability to buy that bigger battery and take advantage of a longer flight time. So it's awesome.
Yeah, we got 27 minutes with the regular battery, and we got 37 minutes with the bigger battery. Now that's 2 forced landing, and also it's us flying at 8,000 feet density altitude here. So you're going to get better results because we're pretty much pushing the extreme in terms of altitude. But that's pretty impressive, actually. The regular battery, we got 87% of what was advertised by DJI, which actually is a really, really good score.
So what was that forced landing? Like, what was the percentage?
0 and then some.
Oh, at
We
zero.
went 0% and then the drone went a couple more minutes after that. So yeah.
That's perfect.
A couple of things that I picked up on in my flights with the Mini 3 Pro. One, it's super quiet. As soon as you turn it on, it's already way quieter, I think, than any other DJI drone, which is really nice. What I did notice that yesterday I was flying it, and it was quite windy here along the Hudson, and it was blowing offshore, meaning that the wind is really, really gusty. It seemed that the drone itself didn't have much issue dealing with the wind, but what I did notice that it kind of got tipped over, it felt like. So when you're trying to get smooth video footage, the wind kind of pushed it around, and that's something that I haven't seen with the Air 2S and the Mavic 3 as much. I think it's because this drone is just so lightweight that it just, even though it's strong and capable, it still has a hard time dealing with so much wind. What I also noticed is that at one point I lost the connection, which was really weird because the drone was maybe a quarter mile out, not far at all. I mean, I could easily still see it. And that's something that I'm not really used to anymore from DJI. I mean, with all their recent drone models, connectivity issues pretty much a thing of the past. So I was kind of surprised to see that. Now, bear in mind that this drone might still not have the latest firmware updates. I mean, the drones that they ship to us they're not pre-production, but they don't always have the final firmware update. So maybe that's something that will be addressed. And the other thing I noticed is that the gimbal cover is not as easy to put on. I think Greg has a special method for this, but I've been struggling with it and basically dumped it in my backpack.
So here's what I found during our testing. You have to go straight into it, straight in, and then catch the camera and then go horizontal instead of trying to clip the top or the bottom and then just put it on. But yeah, it is a pain in the butt. Compared to the Mavic 3. Yeah.
Real quick, something that I didn't notice here. This drone is actually not going to be available until August.
Yes, they just published that.
Yeah.
It looks like if you want to buy the one with the RC right now, it'll ship on May 31st. So that's the end of this month. That's about 21 days away. And if you want just the RCN one or no RC, you're gonna have to wait until August. I didn't expect that.
That's ridiculous, yeah. And I don't think that's an issue in other parts of the world. I think this is specifically for maybe just the United States or the United States and Canada. I'm not quite sure why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go back to talk about the noise, because we did some testing, because we did the same thing you did, Haye. We basically said, this is the smoothest and quietest drone we've ever seen. Yeah. And it turns out it's actually 70 decibels, just like this drone, the Mini 2, and just like the Hotel Nano Plus. And I think the difference is the pitch. This is a much lower pitch, and primarily because the propellers are actually much different size. The propellers on the new drone are much bigger than the propellers on the Mini 2, and I think it doesn't rotate at a speed that's as fast, and then therefore it's not as high pitch. So it really sounds like nothing. You fly to 100 feet and it's pretty much gone. You can't hear anything. Is that what you guys found as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you go back to some of the original DJI drones, like the DJI Mavic Pro, for instance, the prop design was very different. And then later on, they came with the swept back wingtips, basically, to make it more quiet. That works. But with the Mavic 3, we've seen that they have this more, it's almost like a rubbery, more rough material at the edge of the propeller. And I think they've used some of the same material for the Mini 3 Pro, which seems to be super effective.
Yep.
Yeah, I was doing an active track flight, and I'm used to having the Skydio or Mavic 3 follow me, and like I couldn't hear the drone, and that's usually how I knew that it was still behind me. So I would continue to look back and be like, I hope it's still there because I can't even hear it.
Somebody is asking about remote ID. I want to bring that topic up. in the settings, and this could be only because we have a pre-production model, but in the settings, there is no remote ID section where you can put your information for the software to pick it up. So some people are asking, should we be buying drones right now that don't have remote ID? Quite frankly, I wouldn't make remote ID a purchasing decision at this stage, just because we'll have modules that we can put on top of drones in the future. That's my perspective. I'm not going to use remote ID as a decision point. If the drone is good, just buy it, and then you can deal with remote ID later. Chances are a lot of these drones are going to be retrofitted anyway with software. What do you guys thought on the remote ID thing?
I would agree with you. I
haven't kept
mean,
up to date as much as, yeah. I think that you know, I haven't kept up as much to date as obviously you have. You're definitely more in the know. I just think that your logic is right though. Like, don't worry about something that isn't here yet. Purchase the drone. I think that DJI isn't worried about it. Obviously, they're still releasing drones. All these companies are, just because there's no standards set yet. So, you know, retrofitting is definitely going to be easy. I mean, these drones have USB-C, ports on them, so they can easily plug in and take advantage of any hardware inside. I'm just wondering, maybe do you think it could also be retrofitted to the controller as well to then emit from the drone? Do you think that that's a possibility? Because the one thing that I fear is if you have this dongle that attaches to the Mini 3 Pro, it pushes it over 250, probably by far.
Yep. Yeah, most of the solutions we've seen overseas that do remote ID for different countries are about 7 to 10 grams when you put a module on top. But my guess is that everything will be done in software, especially from DJI. They've mentioned before that they can do all of this with software. So we'll see if it's true or not. I'm not going to worry about remote ID, quite frankly. I don't think it's a showstopper. We'll comply one way or another with whatever comes up.
I think what's different though is for the three of us. I mean, we're using drones in a different way, right? I mean, we're using them regularly, upgrading to new models. I mean, that might not be true for all of our listeners. I mean, if somebody's just looking to buy a drone, they saved up money, and they're concerned about those things. I understand where they come from. I agree though that with the modules, I don't think it will be an issue.
Yep. I see a lot of questions in the chat about the smart controller. Or the RC, it's called. Is it compatible with other drones? We don't know at the moment. So we're going to have to wait and see what DJI wants to do. Hopefully they make this compatible with other models, but at this point, it's kind of a guess from everyone.
Yeah, I think that that's just such a sweet spot because the RC Pro is expensive. I mean, you could almost buy the Air 2S as a whole for the price of the RC Pro. So if you're you know, a professional pilot that's flying every single day, it's well worth it. But for those that want a built-in screen and they want something that's a little more affordable, the RC is completely usable. And I you know, there might be some questions maybe people don't even know to ask yet. With the built-in antennas, you might be wondering, like, hey, is the connection still good? And I haven't had any issues. I mean, I think that the connection coming from that remote is just as good as the RC Pro. So
it's the same O3, right? OcuSync 3 from DJI.
Yeah, but it's not like the O3 Plus that comes with the you know, the Mavic 3.
Mavic 3,
yeah.
It's hard to see DJI not making this new remotes with the built-in screen available for other drones. I mean, they've done the same with the RCN1 that works with different drones. I think this is going to be the new standard going forward for consumer level DJI drones.
Well, if you think about it, DJI is all about volume, right? They made this the same controller for all the drones because they know that they can build it for cheaper if they build a bazillion of them. So they will do the same thing with this and try to make it available. I mean, that's my guess. That's what I would do personally, but try to sell as many as you can.
And it fits in with,
just to make it cheaper for everyone or for themselves, quite frankly. So.
Yeah, and
what else is? Let's talk about this vertical mode on this drone. So this has the ability of doing portrait videos where the camera actually turns physically right here to 90 degrees and do vertical shots. Have you guys tested this? And what are your thoughts, Billy?
That's like all I've been using the drone for is vertical shooting.
So what's the advantage for you?
So a lot, you know, I use drones for real estate photography, and something that's been really huge is doing Instagram Reels and TikToks. Like that's that is like a huge way to get views on homes that you're selling. So the way that I'd shoot these vertical videos is I would use my Mavic 3, I'd turn my grid lines on, and I'd try to frame my shot in between the two middle grid lines and then crop it down. Now, that works, and you've got a nice high quality image from the Mavic 3, but at the end of the day, you're digitally cropping. You've also, you can't perfectly frame it. So now you've got a full 4K image, and the camera does a great job at shooting video. It looks awesome. So I've been using it a lot for that. And I think moving forward, when I travel, I'm going to be able to now shoot my vertical photos for Instagram a whole lot easier too. I mean, all the photos I post on Instagram are vertical because it fits your phone, right? So I would shoot with my Mavic 3, I'd line it up in the middle, crop down, I'd lose this resolution, but now I can take a full resolution 48 megapixel vertical image for Instagram. It's like it's perfect.
And let's be clear on this. And then Haye, I'll get to you in a second, but let's be clear on this. This vertical format is not a cropped horizontal picture. It's a lot more than that. You're getting a lot more field of view than you would if you cropped a picture of horizontally, or a horizontal picture vertically. So this brings in a lot more. We did some shots of Thumb Butte, which is a big mountain behind us, and we were able to fit the entire thing and then something that you couldn't do with just cropping a horizontal picture. You'd have to move way further back in order to get the same field of view. Haye, sorry, I cut you off.
I think what also comes into play here is just the speed at which you can share your images in your video. I mean, yeah, you can crop and you can edit and do all that stuff, but if you look at the changes that DJI have made, it's like, how do you get your images from a drone onto social media as fast and as easy as possible? And they've tried to eliminate all the steps in between, including things like cropping. So now, if you're not that critical, you're happy with the color profile from DJI, you can basically just get the images and share them right away. And I think that makes a huge difference. And you've basically seen the same thing in the photography industry, where people are moving away from more professional cameras to their phones, not because the quality is better, but it's just so much faster and so much easier to share, and you can move on to the next thing. And I think we see the same here with the DJI drone here.
Yep. A lot of good questions in the chat. Actually, Russ from 51 Drones is here, and then Jack Half Chrome is here as well. We have a question about whether there's going to be a non-pro version, and the answer at this moment is no. The Mini is now a pro version, which I think is interesting. We went from the DJI Mavic Mini, then they dropped the Mavic moniker. We had the Mini 2 only, and then now we have a Mini Pro. So I don't think we'll see a non-pro version for now. And then there's another question here. About the controller. Somebody said that the built-in screen is useless on the controller. I don't think that's true, actually. If you fly when it's hot outside, your phone is going to overheat and the screen is going to dim. That's happened to us before, and that's why I love actually having the smart controller. So I wanted to bring that up in here. And then there was another question in here that came up. I can't see it. I want to talk about the video mode on this. Were you guys able to get 4K at 60 frame with your pre-production model?
Nope, I wasn't.
What was that again?
Were you able to get 4K at 60 frame on yours? I wasn't.
Yes. At the beginning, the firmware that it came with right out of the box didn't have it, but then they added it in a firmware update. So I'm not sure if you had seen that, but they did end up adding that, as well as 1080p at 120 frames per second.
Yeah, we weren't able to get that, and I tried to update several times, but I figured it was coming because it was just pre-production. So we'll be testing that in the future. What else is in here? Did you play around with the slow motion, Billy? Was it good?
Nah, I mean, I usually am somebody that prefers to shoot in a higher resolution when I'm flying, just because you're further away from your subject, you get a nice high quality image. There's never a time where I'm like, hey, I want to slow down my video. So I'm typically always shooting in the highest resolution. But the fact that we now have 60 frames is nice with 4K.
Yes. And that's kind of a big deal. If you look at the original Mini, the quality wasn't all there. And then the Mini 2, they brought 4K to a Mini, which I think was a big deal at 30 frames per second. And now we have 4K at 60 frames per second with this smaller sensor. Let's talk about the sensor, because I think people always see 1 over something on the sensor and they assume that it's a pretty small sensor. This is not really a small sensor. If you bring it back to inches, it's about 0.77 inches, which is right between a half-inch sensor, 1 over 2.3, and then a full 1-inch sensor. It's also 48 megapixel with the quad buyer, and I think they did a great job at this. DJI even says that this drone the sensor is as good as a 1-inch sensor with 20 megapixel. What were your conclusions in terms of the quality? Haye, I'll let you get started on that.
I would agree with that. I've been flying it mostly, or not mostly, but yesterday at the end of the day, sunset, and then right after sunset. And to be honest, I'm impressed with the low light performance of the DJI Mini 3 Pro. I mean, typically when you go down in sensor size, one of the things that suffers first is basically the noise that you get in your images, especially when the light is less. And that's the main reason for people to basically upgrade to bigger drones with bigger sensors, is you get much better quality when the light conditions aren't so great. This is early in the morning, let's say later in the day, when you get that beautiful light, when it basically strikes over the planet, and you get those much nicer, warmer colors. I've been really impressed with this drone, considering how small the sensor is, how small the drone is, how lightweight it is, and you basically get the same quality that we get from the Air 2S. And I think that's incredible for such a small drone.
Yep. Billy, what do you think?
Yeah. So I haven't actually done any low light flying yet. I was anticipating on doing some this week for a video. But, on the topic of the camera, I just wonder how long DJI can continue this trickle down effect. Do you know what I mean? Because we always see them. I mean, it started back with the original Phantom 4 putting a 12 megapixel, micro, or a 1/2 inch sensor in that camera. Then that trickled down to the Mavic Pro, and then the Mavic Air, and then the Spark, and then the Mini, and then now we have the 1-inch sensor trickled down to the mid-tier drone, and now we have a Micro Four Thirds sensor in our professional folding drone. So like, what else can they do to continue to trickle these down? Like, are we going to potentially see a 1-inch sensor in the future in a mini drone, and then the Micro Four Thirds trickle to the intermediate drone, the Air, and then what, a full frame? I mean, I wonder like what the future holds. I know that it's so early to talk about that, but it's just kind of got my head spinning.
Yeah, it does. And I think what it is too, they're talking about it, they send us some documentation with a video. It's all about the size of the pixels. And they've been able to get, especially on the quad buyer, where they can put 4 pixels into one and then bring that 48 megapixel to 12 megapixel with a bigger pixel, because they're combining 4 of them. That's where they were saying that they get better results than the 1-inch sensor. So I think with the size of the pixels as we go, and better cooling off of the pixels, I think we'll be getting much better quality, especially at low ISO. A lot of people are asking questions about 10-bit available. I was not able to find 10-bit in any of the footage that we recorded, but again, I don't think we have the fully baked software just yet. Billy, were you able to see 10-bit in any of the footage that you got with the upgraded firmware?
No, I actually wasn't looking for it. Does this drone support 10-bit? I didn't know that.
I doubt it. But everything that we've got was 8-bit, essentially. You can record an MPEG-4, MOV, and an H.264 and HEVC, which is H.265 codec. So that's what we found so far. And that's what was advertised. Somebody asked a question here about the speed. I think 37 miles an hour was what they were advertising. We didn't test the speed. That's kind of difficult to do depending on the conditions. And then somebody is asking if this will make the Air 2 or Air 2S obsolete. I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this. Haye, what do you think?
I would say so. I mean, if you're, unless you already have a drone, but if you're new to this and you're about to buy your first drone, let's say from DJI, I would go for the DJI Mini 3 Pro with the remote controller with the built-in display. I mean, that will basically put you at the same price level as the Air 2S, but you get, if not identical, but near identical performance in a much lighter package, especially for international travel. That might be advantageous. And then you get a controller with a built-in screen. So for me, that will be a no-brainer. If your budget would be bigger than that, then I would, step up and go for a Mavic 3, basically. That will be my next thing. But I think the way DJI has been going, it's almost like the Air 2 and the Air 2S become obsolete because the Mini 3 is so good. And then if that's not good enough, then you might as well go straight for the Mavic 3, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm still a big Air 2S guy. I mean, that drone is just, for $1,000, you can't get anything else like it on the market, especially with the Mini 3 coming in and pushing close to that price point. It's kind of crazy to see what you get with the Air 2S. but I think that the Mavic 3 almost becomes a little bit more unattainable at this point, because for the average person picking up a drone, the Mini 3 is priced so much lower and takes such great photos and such great images. I mean, really the only person I can recommend a Mavic 3 to right now is the person that has the budget, that wants to buy the absolute best drone out there, but also somebody that, is a professional that is going to be doing this on the daily and can take advantage of things like ProRes and a built-in SSD. And then you're now talking about $5,000 for the Cine model. So, I think that standard version of the Mavic 3 is kind of hanging out there as a drone that I wouldn't really recommend to people, because you can get such a great drone in the Air 2S or the Mini 3 now that, that standard version of the Mavic 3 is just kind of, it's not as enticing, whereas I can understand somebody needing to go with the Mavic 3 Cine because of the professional workflow. So,
yeah. Yeah, there's still advantages to the Air 2S.
I got a question
because
for you,
you have
Billy.
still 10-bit available. You have the log, and you have a bunch of other options that you don't have in the smaller drone. And then obviously the Mini 3, you have variable aperture. So if you're a photographer, that's going to help quite a bit. I know I enjoy having the variable aperture. Russ brought up the dual native ISO, and that was going to be my next topic in here. This is impressive on such a small drone to get dual native ISO. From our testing, and I confirmed that with DJI, it's at 100 and 1600. What we saw doing our chart testing, and you can see that we just posted a review this morning where we have details. The color changes a little bit when we get to ISO 1600, and that's how we knew that it was the dual native ISO, because something happens in the processor that makes things a little bit different. We get a little bit more blue tint when we switched. Probably not something that you'll notice necessarily when you start flying, but the jump from 800 to 1600 was actually pretty smooth in terms of additional noise. Once you get to 3200 and 6400, I think the noise level is just too much that you can't deal with it. But I would shoot, quite frankly, up to 1600 and then just remove some of the noise in post. Did you guys, I know Billy, you said you didn't test too much of the low resolution, but any of you noticed anything with the dual native ISO, and any thoughts on that?
I haven't really made much use of it, quite frankly. I've just been shooting during the day at 100 ISO, so I haven't been bouncing around to the different ISOs all that much.
Haye?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't specifically looked for that. I did look closely at both video footage and photo footage in low light conditions from last night, and I have to say that I'm impressed by just the low levels of noise that you get out of this drone. And I think for people that are getting into the drone hobby, having this as a starting drone, yeah, ticks pretty much most boxes, and the photo quality is really good.
Yep. And if you're wondering what the quality looks like, we put a bunch of samples, actually full-size samples, on our blog post. We did a full written review, and then you can find a link down in the description. Actually, one of our team members is going to put that in the chat. If you want to see, you can download the full image of our chart, and then you can see how we bump up ISO all the way to 3200 and get a good idea. Somebody asked a question about international travel. I think that's kind of important, because DJI builds these drones sub 250 grams for a reason, is because they want people to be able to fly them in some countries without having to, well, follow some of the regulations. So this will be no different. You'll be able to travel with it. You'll be able to do all these shots that may not require a certificate. In the US, I need to mention this because we get that question all the time. 250 gram and below doesn't really doesn't really allow you to fly outside of the regulation. You still have to follow all the rules. The only thing it saves you is $5 on registration. So you have to be aware of that. You still need to get airspace approval. You still need to not fly when there's a TFR and all of these things. So make sure you fly within the confound of the law. And then what else is in here? You guys can keep talking.
Hey guys, I gotta head out. I got to head out to my first shoot here this morning. It was great jumping on with you guys. This drone's awesome, so I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks.
Well, Billy, we appreciate it. We're going to put a link to your new video review so people can go get an idea of what's going on. And thanks for joining us this morning.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I'll see you later.
See you, man.
Bye, Billy. All right, let's see.
You know what I was wondering? I mean, I was surprised almost that DJI went for the obstacle avoidance. I mean, I guess for some of the shots and the tracking, you would obviously need that. But I was wondering if you didn't have the obstacle avoidance sensors, would that save enough weight to then allow you to have a bigger camera with a bigger sensor on this drone? And would that be the preferred drone, perhaps?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I don't care about obstacle avoidance, quite frankly, but I know people do. So it's
yeah,
I mean,
maybe for the trekking, it's nice that you can I don't know, snowboard or ride a bicycle and have the drone follow you and get those kind of shots. So maybe that's where that makes sense. But otherwise, I think I would opt for just the ultimate image quality that you can get out of a sub 250 gram drone.
yeah. Somebody is asking questions in the chat about the size, and they say it looks like it's a big drone. It's not that much bigger than the Mini 2. So if you can see right here, the body in itself is about the same. The legs are a little bit longer, and then I'm sure you'll notice that there's no antenna. And the lack of antennas right here is kind of weird. So what happens is from time to time, when you land, you may have a tendency to actually tip to the side, and you might catch the propeller. So that happened to us one time. We almost dinged the propellers because we landed on a somewhat rocky surface, which we have a lot of around here. And then the drone almost tipped, and almost the propellers were still spinning. So something to keep in mind when you're flying and you're landing, make sure you land on a very flat surface. Otherwise, you might have issues. Did you have issues, Haye? I know we have different terrain here, and especially with a lot of rocks, but was that something you saw?
I have. Yesterday when I was flying it, I had the exact same thing happen. I mean, it's more, it's less stable because you don't have those feet spread out so wide. So now it's just sitting on its own body, and it makes it more likely to tip over. Yesterday we had a lot of wind here, so landing the drone wasn't such a smooth operation at all. And yeah, exactly what you're doing right now is basically what happens. I was wondering, can you put the Mini 3 Pro on top of the Air 2S and compare that size? Because I think there's not a big difference almost in like how wide the drone is.
It's pretty much right in between. So we have a picture actually on our blog post. We put a link in the description where you can see all of them on top of each other. It's a little bit shorter in terms of the wingspan, and then the body is smaller. And then you can see here, I don't know if you can easily see what's going on in the video, but the bodies are pretty much the same. I think it's just the wingspan is a little bit shorter. It's literally right in between all three of these drones. So I think it's a good form factor, quite frankly. It folds the same size, I think, as the Mini 2, so I wouldn't worry too much about the size in itself. I can tell you that it flies like a dream. It's very zippy. You put this thing in sports mode and it climbs like crazy. I don't know if you put it in sports mode, Haye, and you saw the difference, but it was fun. I mean, I was giggling when I was flying this thing. I was like, whoa, that's impressive.
I had to put it in sports mode, otherwise there was no way to get the drone back. The gusts were like well over 30 miles an hour, and the drone didn't really have an issue in terms of fighting the wind and coming back to me. That was totally fine. What I did notice, and I think I said this earlier in the show as well, is like the drone is so lightweight that it does get pushed around a bit. So I was trying to like fly around objects and get like smooth video footage, and then every so often you could just see that the drone got pushed over so much that it basically got out of the range of what the gimbal can compensate for, and you get this little jerky movements in your footage. So in that sense, it's not as capable, I think, as an Air 2S, or definitely not as a Mavic 3, but in better conditions with less winds, I don't expect this would have been an issue at all.
Yep, I agree. People are asking, let me answer a couple questions here. The RC controller is needed to buy separate, and is it mandatory to have it while flying? Yes, you do need a controller. So whether it's the RCN1, if you have one of those, you can buy the drone without the controller and reuse one of these. But you do need a controller in order to control this. You can't do it with just a phone. And then somebody asked in here, the maximum size of the SD card. I did not see that information available anywhere, but traditionally DJI is 256 gigs maximum. I wouldn't want to put anything bigger in there anyway, quite frankly. I think it's too big of a card. If you lose the drone and you lose the card, you lose all of that. So personally, we use 64 gig cards, and then we change them when they're full, which it takes a while to do this. Mark is asking, does the Intelligent Flight Battery Plus provides 47 minutes? I'm not. I'm going to tell you what we got, but again, we were flying at a much higher altitude, and we were able to get out of that. Let me pull out my data here. Out of that flight, we were able to get 37 minutes, but this is at the equivalent for this flight was 7,000 feet elevation equivalent. So that's a bit higher than normal, but the battery will last quite a while, and I'm expecting at sea level you'll get much better results. Somebody's asking if the Mini 3 Pro has precision landing. Yes, it does. It has the same sensors at the bottom that the other drones have, so that's available as well. And then what else do we have in here? Somebody says put some styrofoam legs at the bottom. We did that actually. We printed little legs to do a little extension, a little peg leg right here, and it was super lightweight with a 3D printer, and that worked really well to keep it level. Somebody's asking if the Mini 3 supports 4K 60. Yes, it will when it comes out. And then what else do we have in here? Hi, feel free to talk as I'm finding more questions.
Those legs are interesting. I mean, that might definitely be a nice addition when you're dealing with rougher terrain, like in your neck of the woods or like windy conditions. I mean, it's definitely something I noticed, that the drone is less stable just sitting on its body. But I guess if you're trying to come up with a drone that is this capable and still less than 250 grams, you have to make sacrifices somewhere. And I guess this is obviously one of the places that they made a sacrifice. Then again, you can always hand catch the drone and hand launch the drone. So there's ways to deal with that, I think. Other than that, overall, I don't really see any other drone that's this capable and this small and even this affordable, I guess.
Yep. Somebody's asking if you can fly this drone at night. I think there's a bit of confusion about drone flying at night. You can fly drones at night pretty easily as long as you get approval if you're in controlled airspace. So there's no limitation there. For recreational pilots, make sure you put a light on so that it's a bit easier to see the drone. A lot of people say, well, it's not in regulation for recreational flying. It actually is if you follow community-based organization guidelines. Just put a light on top of it and then you'll be safe to fly at night. And that's it really. For flying at night, there's not a whole lot more required at this stage. Just make sure that you get airspace approval if there is some in there. What else is in here? Trying to get more questions.
I found it surprising that DJI didn't do much in terms of a launch event. I mean, before COVID, of course, we had the in-person events, and they did that even for small products like a DJI Pocket when we had this event at Times Square back then. Since COVID, they've done online launches with, let's say, a 30-minute presentation and different videos and basically showcasing the product. Today, all I saw was a 2.5-minute intro video of the DJI Mini 3 Pro from DJI, which... I don't know. It's just kind of, I was expecting and hoping for a little bit more fanfare, I guess, a little bit more of a show when they launch a new product.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I was expecting a 30-minute event or something, but no, they just went with 2 minutes. Yeah, it's just a short commercial, somebody says in here. Somebody's asking questions about the lights in the back of the drone. Yes, they are lights. They're called status lights, actually in the front of the drone right here. They're not 3 statute mile lights that you need to use at night. So I wouldn't rely on those for anything other than knowing the status of the drone, if it's got GPS or if it doesn't. Somebody says the lights will take it over 250 grams. Yeah, you know, all it means is you just need to register the drone with the FAA, which is $5 for 3 years. So that's really the only difference. I know people really want this sub 250 gram, but in the US, it doesn't mean really anything other than saving $5 on registration. So I would say spring for $5, put the sticker on there, and then you'll be good to go. Somebody says, will nightclub lighting affect the obstacle sensor? I don't know if it's a typo. No, the obstacle sensors need to have enough light to work properly, so you can't use those at night. It's not going to do a good job. It's not LiDAR. It's just a sensor, a visual sensor, so you won't be able to use those at night. Looks like the field of view on the rear sensor is quite limited. Oh, that's a good question. So this is an interesting design. They put the rear sensor in the same location as the front sensors, and what they did is because the drone is kind of tilted when it moves forward, when it starts to move back, you can actually use these sensors here to see what's going on in the back. So I don't think it's much of a limitation. We tried APAS, which is the obstacle avoidance system. It worked really well forward and back. So I haven't seen any limitations. Haye, have you tested that?
What I did notice is as the sun is setting, the obstacle avoidance, you get warnings on your remote controller pretty quickly that there's not enough ambient lights to basically use the obstacle avoidance. So it starts to not work pretty soon as it gets darker.
Yep, I agree. I see questions about the weight and about flying over people. Somebody's asking, what's the weight limit for carrying drugs over the border? I'm not going to answer that, but actually, I'll tell you something. This thing can lift. The new propellers, this thing can lift almost twice as much as the Mini 2, which is actually really impressive. Wow. So this had one of the best pull ratio that we've seen of all the drones we've tested. It's got the similar thrust to weight ratio that we saw on the Matrice 300 or pretty close to it, or the Hotel, the Light Plus. So this has pulling capability. So I'm not saying use this for drugs, but it's pretty cool. Somebody's asking about flying over people. So this is not a Category 1 drone. You would have to add prop guards to this to make it a Category 1. It's also not been approved as a Category 2 drone. So you're going to be out of luck to fly this thing over people at the moment until DJI does more paperwork or they come up with a drone that's lighter and where you can put prop guards. So that does not qualify to fly over people. I wanted to mention that.
I did hear from DJI that they don't have prop guards available yet for the DJI Mini 3 Pro, but they will be at some point in the future. So just throw that out there.
Okay. Mark said that was a joke. I know that was a joke.
What do you think about the folding mechanism being reversed from other DJI Mavics?
I like it because now I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You can fold in this order or in this order, and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So that's actually nice. The Matrice,
funny, like
the M30 does that, and I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because you think like, who cares? That doesn't make a difference. But I've seen so many people, including myself, with the original Mavics, where you're sometimes like, hang on, how did this unfold again? Whereas this one seems to be straightforward and simple. Yep.
And be careful because these front legs, they rotate. They don't fold. So you're going to take the back legs and you're going to go this way and you're going to want to fold these the same direction. It doesn't work. You have to rotate them. Otherwise, you may crack the thing. One of our employees started doing that and he was like, oops, that's got to be careful there. All right, what else? How long have we been going? Almost an hour now.
51.
Yeah, I think so.
Has the stability of the fin when taking off? Is it a good idea to straighten the props before takeoff? No, these props are so loose that you don't really need to unfold them beforehand. The only drones that I really unfold the props before I fly is the Inspire 2 and the larger drones, the Matrice and all of that. But these smaller drones, you can leave them folded. It's not a problem.
Yep.
What else? I think we're getting towards the end here. Somebody's asking about the Mini 3 versus the Nano Plus. I'm not going to lie. I don't really like our Nano Plus. I think it's still missing a lot of features. The photo quality is not there at all. We have a review coming up that's going to compare the two in a few days, so you'll be able to get my thoughts on that. But I would still go for the price of this smart controller here, this RC controller, and this, you get the same as this Nano Plus right here with just a regular controller. So quite frankly, well, you'll get my thoughts. Haye, any thoughts on that? Have you flown the Nano Plus?
No. Yeah, I have. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's you get a more polished product that performs better right out of the gates, and potentially easier to operate as well, I think. But to me, what will make it a no-brainer is the remote control with the built-in display, and that basically ends the discussion right there, as far as I'm concerned. It's in the past when you were messing around with the smartphone and cables and trying to squeeze it in the controller, it's a pain, and then you get phone calls or your phone overheats and it dims the screen, and now you can't see what you're doing with the drone. When you're flying, and I'm going to say aircraft, but when you're flying, I mean, the FAA treats you as if you're flying an aircraft with all the responsibilities and the regulations that apply. So when you're flying a drone, you don't want to be disturbed, and you don't want to have to deal with a dim screen or a phone call from your mom coming in the middle of a flight. And to have it much simpler with a remote control, with a built-in screen that just works and operates, and you keep your phone for being a phone and you keep it separate, I think it's the way to go. So yeah, I would totally go for the Mini 3 Pro with the remote controller with the built-in screen.
I agree. Somebody's asking if the RC Pro is compatible with the Mini 3. We don't know yet. We'll find out more information from DJI eventually, I'm sure. Somebody's asking if you can shoot log. No, you cannot shoot log with this drone. So I think the log is the next level drone. If you know, this is a bit too entry level. There's a D-Cine-like somebody mentioned in here, which is correct. We haven't been able to test it because it wasn't available until a recent update. So I don't know how good it is, but it's still not a log footage. And then somebody mentioned, what's the max upward gimbal angle? We didn't talk about this because this is a big deal actually for this drone. This thing will go up to 60 degrees and then down negative 90 degrees. So you can actually look up quite a bit. In the past, you could look up 20 degrees, which was pretty cool. But the 60 degrees is nice if you're in like a cityscape where you have tall buildings, or you're in the outside and there's tall mountains that you want to look at. I think it's a pretty cool addition. Have you tested that, Haye? I think you had some cool pictures of bridges. Did you use that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was flying underneath the Tappan Zee Bridge, and it's awesome to be able to point the camera upwards. I mean, the thing that initially attracted me to drones years ago is the fact that you basically have a camera on a tripod that you can position anywhere. So it gives you all these new creative angles and perspectives that you can take videos and photos. Having a camera that now on the drone also tilts up 60 degrees just gives you more options. And yeah, when you're either doing real estate photography or you're just doing creative photography or videography in itself, to have a gimbal that points up is definitely nice. I mean, it just gives you more options. So yeah, I'm a fan of that for sure. The other thing I wanted to point out is DJI always seems to take a page out of the Apple marketing playbook, if you will. And with Apple now not delivering chargers with their phone anymore, it seems like DJI might have followed them. The fact that you can get just a drone without a controller makes the drone less expensive. But if you have a controller that works with multiple drones, it also starts to make more sense. So I think that we'll see the new DJI controller with the built-in screen for the Mini 3 Pro. I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to use that with other drones as well, because then you could just have one remote control that lasts way longer on the battery charge anyway, and then control multiple drones with that one controller.
I agree. I agree. Somebody's asking,
so
is
that
the
makes
upward
sense in my mind.
Yeah, is the upward tilt affected by vertical mode? No, it's not, because the whole camera rotates at a 90-degree angle physically, and then the camera can still go all the way up. So it's not. So you get really a ton of vertical effect when you use this drone in vertical mode with the up and down. This actually looks a lot like the Parrot design, right? Haye, you've seen the Parrot before?
I still have two here. Don't really fly them much, but yeah, they were one of the first ones, I think, or maybe actually the first one that had a gimbal that tilted, I think, as much as 90 degrees upwards. For inspections, it's great, but I mean, then again, how many people buy a DJI Mini 3 Pro for inspection work, right? I mean, I think to me the appeal is more the fact that you can be more creative in how you create your images.
Yep. Somebody's asking if it has a return to home feature. Yes, it does. The traditional RTH from DJI. We don't have a manual yet. I'm sure it's posted on the website now, so we couldn't see all the details on RTH. But from our testing, it has the same low battery RTH. The smart RTH, where you just push the button and it comes back. And then yeah, so you'll be able to return to home. And you'll also be able to update the home point as well. We saw that in the software. And then let's see. Somebody says it's probably going to mean a lot of Air 2S hitting the second-hand market. Yep, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Air 2S for sale coming up pretty soon, which it is a great drone. We've used that as a backup drone for a long, long time, and we love that. We love that. No charger in the package. Yeah, no charger. So let's talk about this charger here. So this is when you buy the Fly More combo, you can get this charger, which is USB-C charger. So you're going to plug it in, and then it's going to show you when you push the buttons here, it's going to show you how much battery life you have left. We found that this thing charges pretty slowly on a regular USB charge. I don't know, Haye, if you noticed that as well, but we put that on the Mavic 3 charger, and this thing is pretty zippy. So the lights right here, the speed of the lights will tell you how fast it is charging. So the quicker the dots go, the quicker it is actually charging. And with the Mavic 3 charger, it was just very zippy. So Haye, did you notice that?
No, I did not try it, but the Mavic 3 chargers is pretty smart, actually. No, I just charged them overnight. I had 3 batteries to go, and with the flight time that you get on this drone, that was more than enough than what I needed for one flying session, basically. So yeah. But it's smart if you can charge them faster with the Mavic 3 charger, and you happen to have a Mavic 3 laying around, right?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you can find faster chargers out there. But yeah, I think it's 60 some watts for that charge, 65 watts maybe. Somebody's asking about the obstacle avoidance sensor. We did test it against branches, but we don't have a lot of small branches around here. I'm sure it's not detecting small branches, just like other obstacle sensors don't detect it. So don't expect anything amazing with obstacle avoidance. If there are small tree branches, you're going to hit them. Yeah. That's not a problem. What else?
That's typically the case, especially in low light conditions or with weird contrast or weird lighting conditions. It's really hard for any drone to avoid wires, cables, and small branches. So you definitely have to be careful with that. It's not foolproof at all.
All right. What else do we have? I think we might be getting to the end of it. We got a lot of questions, of questions answered. Somebody's asking about RAW and JPEG. Yes, you can do RAW. So you can do RAW plus JPEG or JPEG only, but you can't do RAW only. So
and RAW comes in DNG format.
Yep. Yeah. And something to mention, the 48 megapixel mode, you can do that and still have full manual control. So that's a great thing. Something that we didn't see in other drones with the smart photos. You can't, like the Air 2S, you have smart photos at 48, but you can't control it manually. So
have you noticed that the 48 megapixel photo, you need good light conditions in order to make that actually work well?
Not more than the other sensor, not than the 12 megapixel version. So I was actually impressed. I'm going to shoot everything in 48 megapixel because I think the quality is a little bit better with that. So no, not.
I remember testing that with the. I remember testing it with the Air 2. That had a similar feature, and you could see that in as the sun was setting and you were trying to take those 48 megapixel photos, you'd get a lot more noise. So it was kind of a trade-off between getting the resolution but then more noise, or having a lower resolution and a slightly cleaner image. I haven't specifically tested that with this drone yet. I don't know how it would perform there.
Yeah, no issues when we did the testing in the studio here, so that's pretty cool. Somebody's asking about the Fly More combo. Does it contain ND filters? And it does not. Unlike the Mavic 3, we actually haven't seen ND filters yet for this. I did see them in the documentation from DJI. They had a bunch of photos of ND filters, but I haven't seen. We didn't receive them with the drone. So hopefully, I'm sure a lot of companies will have them available today or tomorrow, because I'm sure they've been working on those. Oh, that's something that we need to mention. So in the past, the Mini, you had to clip the filters on top of it. Here we have a similar system that we have on the other drones from DJI, where you undo the filter, it unclips. So this is the filter here. It's actually, this is not even a filter, it's just an open piece. And then you would clip the other, you would latch the other filters on top of it like this. So you don't no longer need to just clip something on top. I think that's a good upgrade as well. And then, what else do we have?
I think we covered pretty much everything, right?
Yeah. If you guys want more information, Haye is going to have an article. We're going to put it down in
Yep.
the description. We have an article that we posted. You can actually download a lot of the sample footage and see for yourself how good it is. We did testing indoors in a control environment, and then you'll have the ability to see how much noise and everything there is at different levels. So we tested all the different settings from 100 all the way to the highest ISO, and then we share all that data with you. So yeah, I think we're getting close to the end. Thank you for watching. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments. We'll certainly be able to answer those questions. And then reach out to Haye or myself or Billy. Go check out Billy's video. He just posted it as well with a full review. And then you'll get all different perspective. I'm sure you'll get a lot of information on this drone in the next couple of days. And Haye, any last words?
No, I mean, I think DJI kind of hit it out of the ballpark. I mean, if you have to make a drone that weighs less than 250 grams, and that's like your first and foremost criteria, then I don't know how you could have done much better than what they've came out with. So, yeah, if you're looking to get a new drone or you're new to the hobby, this will be a great place to start. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. A remote controller with a built-in screen for sure is the way to go. So go get one and enjoy flying. It's an awesome little drone.
I agree. Thanks for watching. We did answer a lot of questions about the controllers, so if you had those questions, go back and watch the beginning of the video. We answer that, and then we'll see you guys next time for the next video.
Yeah.